Welcome back to the tasting room here at Crafted Clarity. I am your host, Steve Moscato. We often talk here about the tension between what we built and what we're built for. Today, I am joined by a friend who has spent his career building platforms for connection, but is currently navigating a season which I think many of you might find resonant. Sherman Mohr is an entrepreneur who has navigated several major reinventions, from the mortgage industry to building a successful platform for social connection called Shared Spirits. He's seen as a success from multiple angles. But lately, he's been drawn towards a new kind of significance, helping those in the over 50 demographic find their own clarity and value through a project called Over 50 Pros. Sherman, pull up a chair and welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Really glad to be here, Steve. Appreciate you having me.
Yeah, so we met nearly a decade ago now,
Yeah.
when you were working on a new platform called called Shared Spirits. It was more than an app. It was about gathering people together, but even then, it felt like it was something deeper, something more about sharing stories, sharing seasons, sharing meaning. What stood out to me was your heart for connection, even back then. So here we are years later, and we're still talking about connection, just in a different season. So I'd love to be able to open up and just take me back to that moment when you were working on this app, and what it was really about. Why was it so important for you to develop Shared Spirits? And tell me a little bit about
Yeah.
Shared Spirits for those who don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. The Genesis story is really around connection. I had access in the late 2000s, 2007, 2008 to some space. I was always a networker. I'd been in the mortgage business in and around the Middle Tennessee market. And I was leveraging classroom space to host monthly meetups. I'd invite a speaker in, and it was my first foray in a meetup. It was an entrepreneur group that I was running. It was growing extremely fast, went from 200 to 1,400 members in this meetup group very, very quickly. And
Oh,
I started conducting these monthly sessions, inviting a speaker. And it lasted 18, 24 months. I
mm,
met an array of people that became my partner in Shared Spirits, became employers, became places I stayed after a divorce. The woman I married emanated from that connection in those meetings. It's hard to
wow.
believe. It's my entire late life after 47 years old can be all brought back to facilitating the connection of people. That's how important it was. So Shared Spirits, I was connected to my partner, Justin Maestas. I don't know what year it was, Steve. We were connected by somebody else I'd met in a wine meetup. And she thought we needed to know one another. He came out to one of my networking sessions at what was Cool Springs Brewery at the time. And we connected. And a few months later, we connected again at Valentino's. Many people in Nashville know Valentino's. It was one of my favorite places. And we were at the upstairs bar, and he had an idea. He spent a life in the hospitality and spirits business, wine business. And he had this idea, man, I would really like to be able to send somebody a cocktail, wine, or beer, and they get it over their phone and can go to the restaurant and redeem it. So as a marketing and a tech guy, I'm not a coder, and I'm nowhere near the marketer and strategist you are, Steve, but I do know how to connect marketing language to technology language, and technology language back to marketing language again. And
Mm,
so, like any good marketing guy, I said, I can help you do that.
right.
With technology, it's a function of how much money and how much time you have. He and I didn't have much of either, but we started a company and started spitballing things and meeting together every now and then. And some years later, we both had jobs and families and stuff. Some years later, we brought in a third partner, and the whole premise of shared spirits, our tagline's literally sharing is caring. So unlike a Starbucks card, which people always appreciate getting that little digital message in their email, they've got a new $5 or $10 credit on their
Yeah.
Starbucks card or on their phone, their app. We thought, wouldn't it be novel to be able to treat somebody to a cocktail, wine, or beer? And so that vision and that reality is now real. We're in probably 40, 50 venues in Middle Tennessee, a few in Southern Florida, soon growing to Texas, and have opportunities for a national footprint that should begin to take shape this year. So while you and I met and discussed this some years ago, life happens, and you know, it's now very, very real. And 3 million lines of code later, here we are. So
Wow.
quite a, but it all began with networking and making an opportunity for people to meet one another. I remember, Steve, in those meetings, it was probably 6 months in, some gentleman came up to me and he said, I don't get what's in it for you. You never speak. You just introduce the speakers. And I kind of laughed and I told him, I said, you'll get it one day. You'll understand one day.
No, I love that. I mean, I love the way that, you're talking about technology. You're talking about how you're the guy who just kind of put things together. But it wasn't really just about that technology. The technology was what enabled the people to have that connection. And I love that you broke it down to connection, because really as marketers, that's what we want. We want to connect people and organizations and missions and causes and things like that. And what I like about Shared Spirits is that it wasn't just what you said, just giving someone a gift card and then that relationship, then that transaction ends. It actually is that shared part of it. So you're actually sharing more than just a drink, and that extends actually to the establishment where that digital invite is actually redeemed. So I love that.
That's very much the case. It's interesting in hospitality, especially around spirits, wine, or beer. You're not just delivering a commodity. You're not sending somebody out for a 6-pack or having DoorDash deliver something.
Yeah.
When you share on Shared Spirits, the whole premise is that you're sharing an experience with somebody.
Yeah.
You're not sharing a drink. I'm doing this in your honor, Crafted Clarity's honor, by the way. It gave me a great
Had I
excuse.
known, I would have had a drink ready.
This is a Four Roses. I would really encourage everybody to do a quick study of Four Roses. It's a wonderful story.
Yeah. Unfortunately, we're not being sponsored, so we get nothing from
Right.
that. But so where did this desire for connection start with you?
That's a really terrific question. And I was doing a lot of writing on LinkedIn, just some articles that I would post every now and then. And part of it was a little bit selfish, Steve. I noticed that when I wrote about a specific tool or something I might have done or reported something relative to an issue, there was some traction. But the post that really garnered the most significant traction were the posts where I shared the spotlight on somebody else. I pointed the spotlight to somebody else and really lifted somebody else up for the community I was connected to on LinkedIn to see. And what was digital became real with Meetup. I saw Meetup as perhaps the most dynamic networking tool of its time. At the time, you could go on and with a subscription run 3 groups for $20 a month, maybe 10 at the time, They could be about various topics. The network that was tied to Meetup would join your Meetup. You could host things. I had a cigar group. I had an entrepreneur group. Those were the two things.
Right.
And there was no agenda on anything I ever did. It was only about connecting people and tying people together, knowing that the outcome of that would probably benefit me. And it certainly did over time. So it was a great lesson in what I needed to do in the old days in the mortgage business was go out and make sales calls. I needed to go see people. I needed to go from one referral source to the next. It was a very traditional analog thing. Meetup provided an opportunity to host a theme, broadcast where you were going to be, what its possible agenda may be, who might be there. The group could see who else is RSVP'd. Whether they showed up or not was inconsequential. You just kind of knew who was associated with things. And you would host these groups. And back in the day, you know, there were establishments who loved having an extra 20 to 50 people in their lobby, whether it was a hotel bar or a restaurant.
Sure.
Nowadays, you almost have to secure the space with a deposit. It's a different animal in many respects. But it was marvelous. So it was taking that old school networking and amping it up with a digital solution that still required human interaction. You know, it required leadership and human interaction. And, you know, we'll probably get there to some extent, but that has been no more important than it is today. Big time.
Right. Yeah. So back then in that season, you were still, is it fair to say that you were still chasing success?
Yes, absolutely. All I thought about was, what do I do to make this exit? What do I do to get this going? What do I do? What do I do? What do I do? In the midst of being willing to live under a bridge to try to see that it happens, you know? And it was all about that. And it's been interesting. This might be where you're interested in taking me, but when I began to let that go, things became kind of better, certainly for me emotionally. But, you know, you can hold on to something so tight that you squeeze it to death.
Yeah.
And sometimes you got to understand what your sunk cost is and understand that you cannot get sunk cost back. Time goes by, money goes by.
Well, let's talk about that for a second. I mean, you brought it up. When I describe you to others, I describe you as an entrepreneur, just because of the vision that you had with Shared Spirits and your latest project, which we'll talk about in a few minutes. Being an entrepreneur, you are a different animal. You are all about diving into a risk because you don't know, what's coming. There's no security. And you're relying really on your own intuition, your own hustle, relationships, of course. But you had mentioned that was a season that really you had to let go in order to move forward. Letting go and being an entrepreneur, those seems to be conflicting ideas on the surface. So talk to me about what happened when you're this entrepreneur, you're in one industry, you had this idea for something that is unique, it ties technology and social connection. It seems that that's the time you want to dig in and put more in. So what happened?
Well, let's thank the pandemic in 2020 for some of that. We had done some technological innovations that allowed for a beta in 18 and 19. And in 20, And I was working relatively alone at the time due to some circumstances that uh, were out of my control and my partner's control. Um, my tech partner, who's our third founder, he'd done a good job of really steering the app to beta, and COVID locked it all down, and
Mm.
we couldn't do anything. There was, establishments were shut and so on. So we had to pivot, and that pivot was part of the let go. You don't know what you're going to be able to control. So you own that and you pivot. And we pivoted by starting a promo agency that serves the spirits and wine industry because those things were available by June of 2020, technically. And we started doing that work. And over the last 5 years, we've grown that substantially. And that gave us the resources, time to bring shared spirits out of dormancy, build it now to the platform that it is. So things happen for a reason.
Mm.
And you let go of something, you pivot to something else. And then when the time's right, what you might have meant to happen begins to take place.
Mm. I
I
love that.
didn't
And
let
you let us.
go of it. I just let go of it for a moment.
Yeah, but you had led us into a perfect conversation about pivot, about letting go of something that was successful, but you knew inside that there is a pivot happening.
Yeah.
We like to talk about seasons on Crafted Clarity. We are all in a season, whether we feel it, we understand it, we know what it is or not. We're always in a season. So we're either going into one, coming out of one, or getting deeper into one.
Yeah.
So our challenge as human beings is to, one, recognize that season, and then two, to figure out, what am I supposed to learn in this season? In the world of whiskey, once the distillation is done, you're put in a barrel and you're sitting there for years at a time, letting the whole process do its job, and that whiskey ages. So as you're moving into the season and COVID, coming out of it, letting go of what you were hanging on to, describe that season between shared spirits. It's up and running. It's starting to pick up some momentum. Um, what does that middle season look like?
It looked like the need to generate some revenue. And personally, just what will I do with this knowledge, this expertise, this gained insight? And fortunately, the the people we knew in the industry, I knew, said, "Well, do you have some people that can do samplings for us?" And so we began to do that. And uh, my learning curve was steep. I had mentors. I had great people who helped, introduced more people who helped. And it's interesting. You do things enough and you begin to become expert at it. Uh, we all start by not knowing what we're doing. And
Hmm.
I'm the kind of person who's not afraid to ask for help. I'll be the first to admit when I need it. And people were gracious. And through the course of the last 5 years in that pivot, I grew that division to about 1,700 samplings with the help of a lot of people last year. And met some phenomenal folks that ultimately inspired me to do this next iteration as well. So I think if we keep our hearts open, it's hard telling where
Hmm.
we may go.
Now, speaking of your heart, um, did you have a shift in your heart, in your focus, in what's important to you as you're making this shift, from shared spirits into what could possibly be next that you might not even know of yet?
Yeah. I had a conversation with I can tell you when it happened. I had a conversation with a probably 70-year-old woman in Houston. who was one of our brand ambassadors, and was the first job she'd done for us. I didn't know her very well. I had a conversation with her and found that 3 days before she'd lost her job. She had done a gig for us a few days before, has an older developmentally disabled son that she cares for, and very little help, very little support. And she tugged at me, not intentionally. And I did a simple thing, Steve. I just offered to pay her in advance of payday. She'd earned the money. I just offered to go ahead and Venmo it to her. And she started to cry. And, ooh, I was moved. And I realized, this promo work, these individuals, this work's more important to them than sometimes it might have been to me. And I didn't really own that like I should have.
Oh.
And that just brought me to this place where, what can I do to continue to support this cohort, this group of people that are 50 and over, who need support, who are being marginalized at work in their places of employment, will likely, in most cases, never secure the same level of employment and income that they might have received initially. They need more agency. They need more help than we might realize. And so that was the impetus of this next heart opening, so to speak.
Wow, that's incredible. I can just picture that moment that, you've hired her for a job to help support your business. And that moment turned out to be one that, if I can be bold to say, it turned your thinking from inward to outward.
Correct.
That she was a means to your end, not in a nefarious way, just because you needed people and she needed work. So it was a great thing. But that moment seems to have changed everything.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah.
Yeah.
So and there were certainly contributions before that, but she was the nexus. Yeah.
So after that moment likely stayed with you for a while. What did that cause you to think and feel? And how did that change your view of your next steps?
It really led to, it led to a season of research, of, some introspection, some more thinking in my mind around sunk cost, some more tangible plans around stepping back in just a little way around some of the active role that I play, so I'd have some bandwidth to do something a bit more meaningful in my life, and to me, and that then led to some decisions around what it is I wanted the offering to be around Over 50 Pros, and what I can do to help facilitate people's ability to find solutions to their problems around a little more income, a little more stability, a little more connection to community themselves. Steve, my wife's out of town a couple of days as we speak, and I can't believe how quiet our place is. Just not hearing her work in the other room. The cats are less active, and our elder population, especially those retired and above, 50 to 65, so much they might still have work and know they need to make some plans. But that retired group that might be isolated, they are hungry for community. They're hungry for connection. And oftentimes they see becoming that great dog walker or that great promo pro or something like that is a significant contribution. Many already volunteer. So I'm just providing a mechanism for folks at Over 50 Pros to identify what they might be interested in, leverage their experience and desires into the next step that might lead to converting that experience into something meaningful for the next phase in their life as well.
Okay. Well, let's step back a couple seconds because we haven't
Sure.
talked about over 50 pros yet, although you've gotten a quick peek of this. So to reframe this, you had a pivotal experience with a 70-year-old that kind of made you think that your next step isn't really about starting a new business to be inward focused, to build another business. It is more about, okay, how do I help people like this one woman who was just so moved by the fact that you were just offering to pay her in advance for something that she had done? Made you think about this population as a whole, that there are people like her who are in a situation like hers, and that your entrepreneurial spirit says, not only should I do something, but I have the ability to do it because of the way that I think and the seasons that I'm in, where I'm now thinking a little bit more about what I can do. So, if that's fair to say that I framed that out correctly, tell me about over 50 pros, your new focus, your new where you're putting your energy, what it's about, who it's for, and why it's so important to you.
Yeah, it's basically a very right now very simple platform. We have an assessment people can take. We really target the over 50 pro market where they can take these assessments and within 3 or 4 minutes, they're delivered 3 recommendations around a gig match. And we provide free coursework that allows people to confidently build profiles on major platforms that then position them to be chosen by the agencies, by the individuals who are hiring on those platforms. And
So these
the
are
goal is to
the-
go ahead.
so these are folks who are over 50
Yep.
who what they still feel that they can contribute, but they're maybe not finding their place in corporate America anymore, or who are these people who you built this platform for? Tell me about who they are.
It is for, well, I'm inspired by the fact that in our promo agency, the average age of our promo pros is 53 years old. And some of our most
Hmm.
effective people are over 65. One of our best salespeople, 73. So, if people are really interested in outcomes, they need to be considering people over 50. It's just a reality that it bears it out. Data bears it out. My real motivation is around equipping people who they see they're becoming invisible at work. They see they need to make some transition. They see they don't have enough saved. They see they're isolated, and they know meaningful work and interaction that might be facilitated through gig work until they've learned enough about their desires, their wishes, that they become solopreneurs. It's a wonderful transitional phase that they can enter if they have a little help and a few resources. And that's what Over 50 Pros is
Okay.
really all about.
Okay. All right. So it's for those folks who may be in transition, or they may just be wanting something that's a little bit more meaningful or flexible.
Exactly. Exactly. And if you were to poll, and we see these polls, so I do enough research that the primary emotion people over 50 are facing in most employment situations is an increasing degree of feeling invisible.
Hmm.
They're not asked to go to the same meetings. They know something's up. And um, I'm wanting to play a role in helping them determine what that next phase may be. And gig work
Yeah.
is just one of the offerings. I'm really focused on helping people flush out what that next decision might be, how they're going to leverage their years of experience I had a meeting with somebody last week who's a great example. She's one of the best online trainers in the world. She's trained literally thousands of practitioners in health and wellness. And until I rephrased part of what she'd done, a good portion of her presentations, 30 to 40%, have been promo events where she's helped the company secure new students for the platform. She's been playing a significant role in converting millions of dollars in sales. And she didn't even know. She didn't have that frame of reference. To her, she was an online trainer and an educator. She didn't realize her skills had helped make a company millions of dollars. That's a reframe that sometimes, Steve, people are so deep in the forest they can't see their own assets. And they need folks to call it out for them.
Yeah. Well, what I heard as you're talking, the word connection came to mind a couple times, a couple different ways. One, the woman who started this, your promo, she was looking for connection. And when you're talking about people over 50 in the corporate world, they're starting to feel invisible, not being invited to meetings. Well, that's a lack of connection, lack of feeling like they are part of the mission, part of the cause, part of the important people, a valuable resource and member of a team. And then when you shifted into this last story of this trainer, she's talking about how she saw herself one way. She's very valuable to the company, but she didn't see herself that way. And that ties into, over time, we pick up or we attach our identity to what we do, not what we're good at, not what we're called to do. So our identity and our role, sometimes they get tied together, and they shouldn't. It's about who you are, not what you do. So for you to be able to build a platform that, one, sees these folks, that's help these folks out and help them with important connections, because us who are over 50, if we're not out there and we're not active, there's less opportunity to connect with others, to be able to just have the interaction that's so important as we age, and as we, our social circles tend to shrink as we get older. So you're fulfilling a lot of needs with one approach here. So I love that. And of course, the fact that you're helping what is stereotypically a challenged demographic when it comes to technology to actually be able to leverage technology to be able to make these connections. I love that.
Yeah. Thank you. It's exciting work. It's fulfilling. Every conversation is one that surprises me right now, and I don't anticipate that it will end anytime soon.
So what's the feedback you're getting from the folks who are on the platform, as well as if you're getting any feedback from those who benefit from the people on the platform getting that gig work?
What they feel seen. That's the primary feedback. They feel seen. I think, discount sometimes how important it is just to be acknowledged and appreciated, and be given some hope, around years of skill that somebody now diminishes. I think that's been the primary thing. They feel seen.
Yeah, that's huge. That's huge, especially we're in an increasingly isolated world. I think since post-COVID, we tend to be more okay with being by ourselves or not meeting people in person still. So, okay. So for you, we've talked about you were an entrepreneur, building things to make money, to, in your own way of being seen in the business world. to having a moment to where you're like, okay, there's got to be something more than just building another company, to now putting a lot of your energy into helping others be seen and helping them in a increasingly challenging part of their lives. Where are you in this whole season discussion that we've been having?
I feel like I'm one of the very people that I'm helping. You know, oftentimes we write books because we need the content ourselves. We write articles because we're writing to ourselves. We uh, composers compose because they're struggling. You know, it's one of those things. I'm a 65-year-old guy involved in 2 startups. I walk the talk. I have um, a season here where it's not quite time. I don't have any interest in stopping. You know, work. I love it. I love the engagement. I love what I do. Um, I love the thought of the outcomes, but what I've begun to recognize as I've gotten older is that I want my legacy to surround certain things that I used to think might have been important, and those things
Mm.
aren't quite as important. I approached a gentleman. I have to share this story. He wrote me back. I wanted him to be featured in my newsletter, and we feature an over 50 pro every week in our newsletter. And I see this gentleman as a very interesting guy. He travels the world facilitating foreign trips for students. Uh,
Okay.
he all of his kids were born, I think, in foreign countries. Uh, he teaches foreign language. He owns a home. All 3 of his kids are grown with families and they own their homes. He emails me back, Steve, and he says, I just don't think I'm worthy of being in your newsletter. And I emailed him
Hmm.
back and I said, I'm going to push back. I don't understand. You have, uh, he said, I've cobbled together a life and have never really made any money. And I pushed back and I said, oh, I don't think you understand what I'm looking for. You've traveled the world. You've helped hundreds of, not thousands of students see cultures in new ways. You've raised 3 kids who are all happy, successful.
Hmm.
You have a house and you do an Airbnb. I think you're far more of what people look for in life than you might realize, you know? So it, it blows me away. People just don't give themselves enough credit. They just don't.
Yeah, well, that speaks to the fact that, we tend to think of being significant and successful as the same thing. That I'm not successful if I don't have millions of dollars in my 401k. When in reality, the goal, I think, is about making a life that is significant, which is aligned to your calling. Whatever gifts that have been given
Yes.
to you, you're supposed to take those and use those to benefit others. And significance is about being aligned with who you are,
Yeah.
and then to be able to just benefit others through you just being you. So,
As I've listened to Crafted Clarity sessions, podcasts over the last few weeks and talked to that gentleman and heard his story and experienced his feedback, I thought, oh my gosh, this is exactly what you're trying to do, Steve. You're trying to get people to understand the life they've crafted. It either may have been or could be far more significant than they realize. And
yeah.
it's like, oh my goodness.
Yeah. And the beauty of it all is that, it doesn't matter when you start your intentionality. It doesn't matter how much life has passed. You always have the opportunity to stop and to reframe your mind, reframe what's important to you, and really understand. And that's that distillation process. I mean, to bring back in the whiskey theme here, I mean, we all have our raw ingredients, and so yours is different than mine is different than his. um but there's comes a time where we've done the distillation, which is the heat, and life happens, and it's how that heat and those challenges and the things that we've been through, how they shape us, and then what we do with them. And then to be able to realize that we're going to have a season that's going to last who knows how long. But in that season, there's still work to be done. But at the end of that season, as you transition to another one, that's where you find your purpose. And I love the fact that, I've only known you about 10 years, but I've seen you go from the one phase of I'm an entrepreneur, I'm building the next big thing because it needs to be built, to I want to take everything that I've learned and I've experienced and my special gifts and my skills and apply that something that is not only meaningful to you, but meaningful to others. I mean, again, I'm sure that for every story you hear of a 70-year-old woman who's brought to tears by your kindness and by your intentionality, there's dozens of others who feel that same way because of the impact that you're making, because you're being intentional about living out your calling and understanding the season that you're in and what that season is calling you to do and how to move. So I love what you're doing. Before we close here, I would love for you to be able to share where people can connect with you to follow along, so they can be part of your journey.
Well, they can always connect with me on LinkedIn, but what I would really appreciate them doing most is hitting my newsletter. It's called frontofthecheck.com, And Steve, you can probably assess very quickly why it's called that. I'm really about the business of providing people agency so they can become the people that control who signs the front of their check. I want them to pay themselves, not just
Yeah.
financially, but emotionally as well. So,
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, Sherman, I appreciate the time that you've spent with me today and this discussion, and I love how you've been open. You've shared your journey, from where you've been, what you're doing now, and what's passionate for you. That's just really uplifting and encouraging for anyone who is just thinking, man, I've been this, so I don't know what's next. Well, there's always room to dig into something new and significant. So I appreciate the time that you have spent with us today.
thank you very much, Steve. Appreciate being here.
Yeah. So for everyone who is listening here, as with all of our podcast episodes, on the website under Tasting Room, I'll have notes and reflections about this conversation. So you can take some of the things that we've listened to and maybe apply them to yourself. So those will be on the website as well. So until next time, I'd like to remind you that clarity isn't found, it's crafted. Thanks for listening to Crafted Clarity. If you're a leader wrestling with the tension between success and significance, or if you're trying to align your work with a deeper calling, I'd love to connect with you. If your organization is facing questions about strategy, whether it's alignment, ROI, or building confidence in your team, this is the work we do every day at iBrand. And if you walk this journey yourself, or maybe you're right in the middle of it, I'd love to hear your story and maybe even share it here on the podcast. You can find me at craftedclarity.net.